All right guys, this YouTube thing has been a wild ride, let me tell you. Every one of our vehicles seems to be a one-off, and I'm learning new things on each vehicle and a different technique of something every time I tackle something new. I hope you guys are learning something new every single time, and we really thank you guys for paying attention and commenting, especially when you say, I never knew that, even though I've been in the trade for a long time. We definitely also want to thank Skillshare for partnering with us on this video. We are just starting to understand what we are able to do with the Holley Dash for a pile of our projects. We've been able to make custom dashes now. We've been playing with this for a while. We've got a custom dash with Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner on our Coyote Swap Mustang that actually fits inside the factory bezels. We've got a custom dash for our F350 that adds all the extra gauges that we want, so we don't even need the pillar anymore, and it looks like a brand new truck incorporating the King Ranch and the Caterpillar in the gauge set itself. We've also got a design layout for Debocho, which now looks like an R8 dash, and also for the AMG Mercedes that's got the LS in there and make that look like a brand new Mercedes. All right, so what is Skillshare? Skillshare is an online community of thousands of different courses for aspiring creative people. So if you want to get into designing your own dashes, because I know you guys have some very unique projects yourself, you're going to want to look up Fundamentals of Photoshop with Meg Lewis. And if you've got your fundamentals down and you want to start working in layers, you're going to want to check out Adobe Photoshop Layers Explained with Jeremy Deegan. These are great primers if you've never worked with Photoshop or you've never worked with layer styles, which is exactly what Aaron's doing when he's making these dashes. So here's the best part. The first 1,000 of our subscribers, I click the link down below, get a free month towards everything that Skillshare has to offer. If you can cram in 10 courses in a day, that's 300. If you can cram in 100, that's 3,000. I don't know. I think math might be one of the skill sets on there, and you will be better at it than I am because you clicked on the link. Here we go.
All right, here we are in the Debocho Edit Suite. This is where all the videos get put together, and I'm going to show you guys how you can make your own custom gauges. All right, so I wanted to show you kind of what's possible when you're designing gauges, custom gauges for your Holley Digital Dash. This is not a Photoshop tutorial as much as it is just to show you what's possible with any kind of program. If you really want to learn a new program, check out our Skillshare link. The Holley Digital Dash comes preloaded with a bunch of different screen templates. They're all very functional and look great, but I wanted to see, can I design a custom layout that fits the theme of a build and give it an OEM quality feel? This one here I made for Debocho. As you can see, I've incorporated the livery in the background. This Audi has a GM engine bolted to a quattro transmission, so I made an Audi sport badge to reflect that. To me, it's hilarious. So I start out by making a pile of different circles, arranging them where I'd like things to go. I try to look at a lot of different designs from OEM gauges that I like. This kind of looks like an R8 Audi gauge cluster. I also knew I was only working with a shorter 7-inch screen, so having one single gauge in the middle really fit. And talking with Rich, because it's a race car, we want this to look really simple and easy to read. When you're racing, you're not really thinking about everything your car is doing. You're focused on 3 things: RPM, oil PSI, and engine temp, which is coolant. When you're programming the Holley Dash, there are a number of settings for each instrument you can flip on and off that allow you to adjust color and transparency, add labels, units of measurement, number of segments, red line, and warning lights. The one thing you can't modify is the font, and I don't really like the font that they use, so I'm just adding units and labels in Photoshop because I'm a glutton for punishment. Here's a closer look at what I'm doing inside the layer styles. I can make a simple circle look 3-dimensional by adding things like bevels, shadows, or add a gradient to overlays or a stroke. Adding photorealistic textures can give the gauge another level of realism. It also helps to have a reference to look at while you're doing this. I'm looking at various mechanical and digital gauges on a different screen. Kind of like the R8, I was taking styling cues from that. I was also looking at Dodge Demon clusters and brought in some red eye elements as well, like the red outlines and gauge sweep. There was some back and forth. I uploaded my design onto the Holley Dash and then brought it back into Photoshop to make some changes. You might find yourself having to do that a couple times. Just for aesthetics, I wanted to see boost revving up, as well as I wanted a fuel gauge. So I added these thin analog gauges with a texture to make them feel a little more three-dimensional, but subtle enough that it's not distracting. I just found some of these elements online and just drag and drop them right into Photoshop. I also had some different modes here, different backgrounds that I just found. And I kind of went with this one that matches our steering wheel, kind of looks like it feels like the same sort of fabric. So now we're ready to import the file. This is the gauge cluster that we were using in the Audi before designing one. Believe it or not, this is all the same info. I even added more gauges than we had before. I highly recommend using a preloaded cluster when you're programming everything before you upload your own background. Save a working setup on a different page so that you have something to swipe back to and check your inputs. This just eliminates a bunch of troubleshooting when you're starting from scratch. If you already have a gauge cluster that works, it's a lot easier.
All right, here we go. This is not too difficult. Grab your USB out. Throw your USB with the file on it. That's going to load it up in here. You can already be started and running, that's fine. So I'm going to go to menu, customize, okay, and background, change. Now I'm gonna find my file, Debocho, okay.
From here I just start deleting everything, moving gauges around, and I want to start with a clean slate. You can tell each gauge what to measure, how big you want it to be, where you want your sweep to begin and end, what the units are, and set the range. Then start playing with transparency, set how many segments are visible, set your warning lights. Basically, this is all trial and error. What's nice is that once you have your dash set up, you can export the gauge cluster and load it on another screen or another dash. Maybe you need miles instead of kilometers, or the same layout for street and racing mode. I've exported all the clusters I made, so if you're a builder member on our website, you can download these as working gauge sets along with the Photoshop project files, or you can find each template on our merch store. There's 3 on there right now. I'll be making at least 2 more for upcoming projects. If you'd like me to make some more templates, let me know. So that's the Audi, that's the Quattro. For the Mustang, I really wanted to have some fun with this. This was my first attempt at any gauges. This was my first one. The first thing I did was actually take a picture of the dash, because I knew we were going to keep the moldings over top of the screen, and I wanted to be able to see kind of where things should go. So I did take a picture and just bring it right into Photoshop and stretch the screen so that the edges fit, and then just cut out the gauges themselves, the molding, so I could place things where I wanted them. So I knew going back to the car kind of where things were going to be, and it turned out really well. I was pretty impressed with how well this worked. If you have anything kind of covering up any part of the dash, I'd recommend just taking a picture. Or if you want to see just how it looks inside the dash when you're designing it, maybe you want to carry in some different lines from like the steering column or whatever else, right? Different bezels, and you want to see kind of where things are going to land. This is a good way to do that. Then we went to the hammer wagon, and I wanted an AMG logo on there. I wanted an LS1 turbo logo. So I just found all this stuff and modified it, looking at a bunch of different designs for inspiration. Kind of wanted this to look OEM plus, just playing with textures and the layer styles.
All right, so Aaron's configured the dash and made it look like a modern AMG. And I've taken the old dash and figured out which pins did what. And basically just the test light figured out what my left and my right and what my fuel gauge was. My fuel gauge I've designated as my blue wire, that's my go wire. And Holley likes to designate that into pin number 21, input output number 7. That works good with the ohm reading. So what you need to do is take a ohm meter on your fancy multimeter and figure out what empty is and what full is. Now if you have a generic fuel cell out of the that you buy aftermarket from Summit or whatever, it'll usually tell you 0 to 90 ohms, 0 being empty, 90 being full. But this is a German car and I have no idea what they're doing. So I do know that the tank is full, and I've got 4 ohms is full. So knowing that, I can put this pin in there. That's pin number 21. So that is the 3rd row down and the 4th one over. And that is designated by Holley as the fuel. Left, which would be your yellow wire. Yellow, same as trailer wiring, your line in the middle of the road is yellow, it's to your left. And right, which is green, the fields and the ditch is to your right. Left turn is 30, right turn is 22. So once those are seated all the way in, you can look and make sure that the pins are all bottomed out. Then this should clip right back in again. That locks all the pins in place and we're golden. All of these other pins you can use to do whatever you want, whether you have power adders or you want it to control certain things or you want extra monitors. You could have temperature for transmission, temperature for EGTs, whatever your heart desires, and we'll get into that more once we get into our cat dash, because we're going to add a pile of different monitors for that one. 2 fuel tanks, all that fun stuff, but this is a very basic one and a good way to start learning if you're doing your own dash. So if you can figure out fuel and your left and right, then basically everything else is pretty straightforward and easy afterwards. So plug that back in again and then make sure that everything works. So our fuel tank, we will have to go and tell the Holley Dash what we did with our fuel tank. It can't just magically know what a full tank is and what an empty tank is. So we need to go to menu, configuration. We want to go to dash configuration, scroll or stroll, whatever you want, down to input number 7, which is fuel level, custom ohms, and then hit this little setting button right there. Now your bottom ohms would be 0, that would be empty, and our top one would be, we're gonna say 4 ohms. There we go. Okay, and then we want to see how we did a little jog here. All you want to do is hit linearize X, which does the average of the numbers across the bar, and then linear Y, which equals this out. So as your ohms goes down, your fuel gauge will go down. Hit save, and then we can go to our dashboard. So that should be a full tank. Now what we'll do is we'll drive around until the tank is completely empty. Keep a little jerry can in the back, keep the multimeter in the passenger seat, and when the tank is completely empty, we can pull the dash out, pull pin number 21, get our ohms reading. I imagine it'd be 0. It might not be, it might be a little bit more. We don't know until we find that out. Now we've set up our turn signals here on the left and the right, but I believe the dash here also has left and right on the top. So we'll see if that works. that is a general setup on how you do it. I'm sure you'll get everything right the first time. Don't feel bad if you don't. You just play with it a little bit and iron out the kinks as you go. So our temperature is reading the temperature of what it is in the shop, and then the speedometer is just with the GPS here, so nothing to worry about there. Very straightforward. If you guys want the templates that we've made, those templates are available for you on our website as a builder member. We'll continue making more videos on specifically on the Cat and the Bronco, because we'll be using these dashes as well. Gives it a really nice finished look, and we don't have to worry about any like fuel levels and all that are so easy to program. They are expensive dashes, but they save you the money in the long run, and they look phenomenal. So we're just starting to figure out what all these dashes can do. So head over to Skillshare. If it's not graphic design for dashes that you're interested in, there's thousands of other programs there as well for you. Remember, get out there and work on it, because if you don't do it, nobody else is going to do it, and it's worth it in the end. Here we go. Skillshare tells you how to train your dog. Yeah? You already think I'm going to say speak. Go to sleep. Sleep. I know you don't want to go to sleep. Sleep. Go to sleep. Go to sleep. There you go. There you go. Good girl. Good girl.